Ready to go? Yeah, then somewhere I can email you for the next meeting.
Good afternoon. Now I'll call the July 28th, 2011 meeting of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission to order. Thank you for being here, and we'll ask Ms. Carter to call the roll.
Ms. Atkinson? Present. Baum?
Present.
Mr. Hargett? Ms. Hayes? Present. Mr. Isaacs?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Ms. Kinsey?
Present.
Mr. Lillard?
Here.
Mr. Mann?
Here.
Dr. Nixon?
Here.
Mr. Walden?
Here.
Mayor Wharton?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Yep. All right. It's great to see everyone here. We have a full house. I think Trey's going to be here. Everyone who has been appointed to the commission is here, and hopefully in the next meeting we'll have our second student representative, so that's great. We'll now entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
All right, with motion second to approve, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. We'll now entertain a motion to approve the April 28th, 2011 meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. A motion second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. As far as my report is concerned, I just want to just thank everyone for being here, and also thank the College Board for their presentation this morning during our workshop session. It was tremendous just to hear what they're doing at the College Board and what we're doing here in the state of Tennessee with regard to K through 12 and higher education. It's really exciting, and looking forward to even more successes with regard to that. Also, I just wanted to congratulate the staff for developing a proposal that was awarded a $1 million grant from Complete College America. Tennessee's selection of the grant was announced earlier this week by Governor Haslam, so I just wanted to congratulate them. Tennessee is one of the 10 states that was selected by CCA for the grant. Over 30 states applied, so that's tremendous. The grant is sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. At this time, I would like to ask Jessica Gibson to come up for a brief summary of the Tennessee proposal.
Thank you, and I'd just like to say how excited we are to be chosen really for one of 10 of these grants, and really excited about the initiatives that are going to come out of these grants. And funding from the CCA grant will support 3 separate initiatives. The first being the expansion of the adaptive advising tool, also referred to as the Netflix Effect software, developed at Austin Peay by Tristan Denley. We're hoping to expand it to 3 additional institutions, and what this software will do is make course suggestions to students based on courses in which they'll succeed and which correspond to their degree path. There'll also be developed a major recommendation tool that will also be rolled out during the process of the grant. The second is a statewide prior learning assessment initiative, and this is really focused on adult students who have been in the workforce, come back to school, and may have skills and credentials that could translate into credit hours. So we're hoping that for the institutions that don't have this program right now or want to develop the program further, that this program will allow them to do so. The third is a series of college completion academies. We're very excited about to partner with the Governor's Office and UT and TBR in this initiative. And it's really to provide resources for institutions on some promising practices nationally and locally that will help them develop innovative completion strategies and further their completion initiatives. And that's it.
Any questions? No, thank you so much. We'll now call on Dr. Rhoda for his report.
Well, also, I'd like to thank you for calling on Jessica to do that, because she was the point person in pulling all this together. And yes, there are a lot of players involved, and we appreciate UT and the Board of Regents supporting, and other members of the commission staff. But Jessica's the one that was like the air travel controller. So, thank you, Jessica. I'd like to ask Cato Johnson to make a few remarks. Tennessee Higher Education lost a dear friend last week. R. Eugene Smith, and like many of us, but probably more so than many, Cato and Gene were longtime friends. Cato?
Thank you. You know, Matt, I'll stand up a minute. You know, in the New Testament, the book of Matthew said, let your light so shine that they may see your great works, so and thereby glorifying your Father. R. Eugene Smith cast a tremendous light. Those of us who have great passion for the University of Memphis remember him as a man of tremendous integrity, a man of ethical character, but someone who loved public education, his work with Middle Tennessee. R. Eugene Smith would be the type of individual we will be talking about long after all of us have moved on. There are stories we can all tell about him. There are things we can all say. But he was as loyal a friend, as dedicated as public servant, as anyone you ever want to meet. R. Eugene Smith will be greatly missed. Thank you, Rich.
Well said. Cato.
Thank you, Cato, and we could have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Also, another person known to many, if not all of you, who has had some two losses, Kersanya Wiley, who on the commission staff, who always helps us with the logistics of the meetings and is usually the one keeping the trains on time, lost an aunt and was preparing to attend that funeral in New York, and then learned that her brother also died. So we'll keep Kersanya in our thoughts and prayers. So, back very briefly to this morning. Again, I thought that was an excellent program, and I want to thank Mayor Wharton for rising to the occasion with all of 10 minutes advance notice to be the keynote speaker, I think. Yeah. Also like to acknowledge the recently announced retirement of Dr. Bob Bell. Bob, you're here. Could you stand? Let us... There you go. Bob is leaving Tennessee THEC, I guess, at the end of this fiscal year. But thank you, Bob. We'll have another occasion to honor you, but just wanted to recognize you for that. We have two new members of the staff with us today, both special young individuals. Renee Reinhardt. Renee, if you would stand. She is interning with us in our First to the Top office. She has a baccalaureate degree in poli-sci from Notre Dame, and is in the master's program at Vanderbilt in public policy. This is not why we have her with us, but her prior experience includes working with Lumina Grant while she was in Indiana. So glad you're with us, right? And then also Andrew Morse. Andrew, if you'd stand. Andrew's working with us this summer as a graduate assistant with David Wright and his staff. Andrew has both a baccalaureate degree and a master's degree from UT Knoxville, and is currently in the Doc PhD program there in higher education administration under the tutelage of one Dr. Grady Bogue. So, Andrew, glad you're with us. Let's see. The THEC board met earlier this week in called session to approve rules that implement the recent legislation for the lottery scholarship. That action was taken, they were approved. They will now go on that process through the AG's office to be vetted for legality, and then on under the Administrative Procedures Act through the Secretary of State's office. The other item on that agenda was, we've talked about this here before, last year at this time, the policy changed at the federal level as far as student loans are concerned, and it's now all direct loans directly from the federal government to the institutions. Organizations like THEC that had been guarantee agencies are now faced with, they're still responsible for the loans that occurred while they were guarantee agencies. But are there other services, agencies like THEC that have a tremendous and a solid infrastructure? You know, how could those services be harnessed and still serve students? That's obviously what this is all about. So there was some discussion about that, and we will keep the commission apprised of that as well. Now, my last item, I would have the honor of introducing someone known to many of you, and I'll ask him to start making his way to the podium, Dr. Doug Wood. Doug was first known to us when he was here in Tennessee as the executive director of the State Board of Education from 2000 to 2004. He left Tennessee, went off to New York, and has done a number of things, but he is now a program officer with the Ford Foundation. And some of us will be meeting with him tomorrow in these offices to talk about, hopefully, areas of mutual interest. So I'd like to ask Doug to make a few remarks.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Rich, for inviting me to this meeting, and I can tell you it's certainly an honor to be here and to see so many familiar faces. And I was telling Bob I still have my Tennessee THEC mug on my desk, and it's so good to see him and to see all of you this afternoon. As Rich said, I am a program officer now with the Advancing Higher Education Access and Success Initiative at the Ford Foundation, which is located within our Educational Opportunity and Scholarship Unit. So my job now is overseeing and developing grant making for higher education for the United States for the Foundation. The Ford Foundation is currently in its 75th year, beginning as a $25,000 donation from the Ford family, with the Foundation being incorporated in Detroit, Michigan. By the way, it's still incorporated in Detroit. Although we haven't been joined with the Ford family since 1956, the endowment now stands at $12 billion from that $25,000 initial donation, and we make grants totaling $600 million a year. We have offices in Chile, Brazil, Egypt, South Africa, Indonesia, and China. And we have higher education program officers in all of those countries with the exception of Indonesia. I recently had a chance to meet all of my other higher education program officers at a Pathways to Higher Education meeting in Chengdu, China. And the Pathways to Higher Education, or what we call the PHE project, began in 2002 and will be ending next year. It was implemented in some 22 countries around the world, promoting policy changes focused on the equitable development of higher education within those countries, including supporting targeted student groups to attain post-secondary credentials and supporting institutional leadership capacity. Now, I have to tell you, the highlight of this meeting, I consider myself a fairly informed guy, but I'd never even heard of Chengdu, let alone knowing that there are 11 million people in that city alone. But the highlight came for me at the meeting when Dr. Rong Wang spoke. Now, she is director of the China Institute for Educational Finance Research at Peking University and a chief advisor to the Ministers of Finance and Education of the People's Republic of China. So it came around two-thirds of the way through her presentation when he said, and I quote, she said this, "We are very pleased to see Dr. Wood in the audience as a former member of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. We want you to know that we are studying closely the outcomes-based funding formula recently created and implemented by the Commission and the state of Tennessee as a model for our thinking around performance-based funding formulas for our universities throughout China." Now, now, you got these earphones on, and you're trying to figure out this, interpretation, and I'm interested in performance-based funding formulas, so I'm typing, and the thing I'm typing, I say, "must find Dr. Wood in order to contact the Tennessee Higher Education Commission." That's what I'm typing. And all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, I'm Dr. Wood, and I'm talking about the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. It was great. I can't tell you, it was a marvelous thing, and it was just great. It was wonderful. So I just want to say, you've done a remarkable job, and the world is literally learning from the good things you're doing in higher education here in Tennessee, and it is an honor to be here. So I just want to make sure I said that up front. As I said, I'm currently in the process of developing Ford's priorities and funding strategies in higher education, and I've given a great deal of thought to it, and I've had a great deal of latitude to do that from our director, Jeannie Oakes, our vice president, Darren Walker, and our president, Luis Sabines. So my goal is to have developed a plan with a budget by late fall that will outline the goals, challenges, and opportunities, as well as the outcomes and indicators with appropriate measures to determine impact. So I've visited all of our grantees in higher ed except for 4, and they're all in New York. And I've been from California to the Midwest, and now I'm doing my swing throughout the South, where, by the way, we need more investment. And I've learned a lot from Ford's prior investments in community colleges and higher education, specifically the Ford Rural Community College Initiative and the Ford Building Bridges to Opportunity initiatives, which both focus on community college. So I thought I might share with you some of my thinking thus far, which is meant in many ways to build upon previous investments Ford has made in the community college sector. This is still ongoing, and we're still developing it, but it'll give you a good sense of where we're possibly headed. So, number one, increase the number of community colleges and four-year institutions that integrate academic and workforce development for underserved students in the United States with a particular regional, place-based approach. So we're talking about supporting community-based organizations aimed at improving the academic preparedness and college readiness of underserved students, supporting programs that seek to engage high school students in successful pre-college education models, including counseling. And I swear I had no idea what you guys were talking about before I came in here today, but this was literally on my list. Support programs within community colleges, working with four-year institutions that seek to create innovative approaches to finance curricula and delivery, support the improvement of articulation and universal transfer pathways among community colleges and four-year institutions for students who seek to obtain a four-year degree, support the use of prior learning assessments in order for adults to earn college credits or post-secondary credentials, support and develop programs within community colleges that provide flexible and integrated learning environments, counseling, online learning tools, provide student support services, and develop regional career pathways for the purpose of increasing the number of underserved adults who successfully obtain post-secondary credentials with labor market value. Support and develop higher education accountability systems that monitor equity in access and completion and that support implementation and interventions at the systems and institutional levels. Number two, second big goal that I want to hope that we put into our package, replace enrollment-based funding formulas at the state level with outcomes-based funding formulas that pay explicit attention to the performance of disadvantaged students for the purpose of improving standards in community colleges and four-year institutions. So that's really around supporting projects that study, develop, and implement an outcomes-based funding formula by state higher education policy commissions, state constitutional officers, and legislative members in selected states. And then finally, improve access to quality, affordable post-secondary education for students and disadvantaged adults. Obviously embedded within these priorities are the following elements: funding ongoing research and seeking partnerships with other foundations to support in-depth policy development in these identified priority areas. But I must say one last thing about the Ford Foundation. A focus on instruction alone is not enough to ensure academic success for some underserved students and particularly adult learners. Transportation issues, financial difficulties, housing, and child care can be challenging for working adults. And by the way, Dr. Paula Short reminded me of that in the conversation I had with her before I took this job, so the rest of my thinking I'm going to blame squarely on Paula. But continuing that, support services such as academic, transportation, and child care assistance can play a critical role in many students' ability to obtain a post-secondary degree or credential. So building upon lessons learned from the Ford Rural Community Colleges Initiative and the Ford Building Bridges to Opportunity Initiative, collaboration within the foundation among the Ford units of educational opportunity and scholarship, financial assets, quality employment, metropolitan opportunity has the potential to substantively help communities to address the issues of increasing the number of underserved students completing post-secondary credentials with labor market value within a regional and place-based context. Unit collaboration, I'm talking about unit collaboration within Ford, also has the potential of leveraging Ford's current investments in particular regions, as well as seeking out new regions for new investments in ways that lead to more collective impact. The Ford Foundation, celebrating 75 years, is uniquely positioned to assume such a role. More, in fact, I think, than any other foundation, precisely because of its investments and expertise in these unit-focused areas over a long and sustained period of its history, both domestically and internationally. So, with that said, I look forward, and in fact thrilled, to be working with the Commission staff members tomorrow and Rich in figuring out how we can support the good work that you truly are doing in this state and actually throughout the world. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that completes my remarks.
All right, tremendous, tremendous. Thank you so much. Glad to have you back.
Good to be back.
It's just another indication that we truly live in a global society, a global economy, when you know that folks from China are watching what we're doing. So it's impressive. All right, we're now ready for our system reports, and we'll start with Chancellor Morgan for the Tennessee Board of Regents.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief in recognition that we have a pretty full agenda here. But Doug, as you were describing your priorities, and it just seemed like to me it would save you a lot of time to just adopt Tennessee. All the things you mentioned are things that we're vitally interested in. So we look forward to working more. I'd also like to kind of join with in thanking Jessica for her work on the Complete College Grant. But for her, it would not have happened. And it is very important to all of us, and very much appreciate that. I just want to mention real briefly a couple of things. Rich already recognized Dr. Bell, who has indicated his desire to retire at the end of this year. I told him earlier today that there's still plenty of time for him to reconsider that decision. We haven't taken any irrevocable steps that would preclude him from reaching a different decision. But we also have other transitions that have taken place recently and that are taking place in the system. I think all of you know that Dr. Alan Edwards retired at the end of June from Pellissippi. We selected to take his place Anthony Wise, who was the Chief Academic Officer at Pellissippi. We're quite excited about Anthony and believe he will do an excellent job at Pellissippi. Dr. Stanton, as you know, is scheduled to leave ETSU January 14th, I think is the date that he has identified, and we are currently engaged in a search process that is already taking place, but the first meeting of the search committee, I believe, is August 22nd. That will kind of be the public beginning of that process. A little different from times past. We are using a search firm for ETSU. It's a firm that we selected through an RFP process. Greenwood Asher is the name of the firm. Really has, we think, strong credentials to help us meet these needs and additional needs that will occur over the coming 3 years or so. And then, of course, we have an interim leader at TSU who, in my mind at least, is doing a tremendous job that will be working for a permanent position, permanent solution there next year. So we're very busy just in terms of presidential searches. I hope that's all we deal with between now and next year, in case anybody's listening. But today, this morning, as a matter of fact, and Paula is now here. This morning, she was engaged in a meeting, and I had an opportunity to welcome some folks too. That is really an exciting meeting for us. One of the provisions of the Complete College Act was really an encouragement and I believe an expectation that our technology centers and our community colleges would collaborate and cooperate in ways that we haven't in the past. And that is a process now that has been underway for some months with help from the Lumina Foundation. But today's meeting really was a significant number of people from our technology centers sitting in the room with a significant number of people from our community colleges talking about specific things that could be done to really create more of a pathway for those students who begin their post-secondary experience in our technology centers to continue to go to community colleges and we believe potentially even further and try to build that pathway and build the expectation and the easy transition from place to place. So those folks were there today. They were meeting together about really how to better align curriculum in business management, computer information systems, and technology, early childhood education, health sciences, logistics, really in further development of 1+1 programs so that those students who go to a technology center for a year then can complete an AAS degree in another year by going into a community college. Very exciting for us. As Paul has shared with the group this morning, we are one system. Sometimes we don't act like one system, and this really is a major step forward that we're quite proud of. So with that, I will turn it over to the next one.
Thank you so much. We're now ready for our report from UT. I get to call him, as he lets me call him, Dr. D, to do the report for the University of Tennessee.
That's right, Mr. Chair. I'm always there and available whether you call me Joe, Dr. D, or whatever. At any rate, I'm glad to be here today, and I want to do a couple things very quickly. I want to tell you about a few appointments we've made at the Chancellor level. We have appointed Dr. Larry Arrington as Chancellor of the Institute of Agriculture. Larry will be joining us in September. He has a background in PhD from Ohio State in ag education. He has experience as a Dean of Extension at the University of Florida. And he was an interim senior VP for agriculture at the University of Florida, which should serve him very well in this role. He comes to us with probably 15 or 20 years of administrative experience. He understands the system that we have here in Tennessee, and I think he's a really, really good fit. And we're looking forward to him coming on board and doing my old job. I also have with me today Dr. Dennis Hegstetler. Dennis, where are you? Stand up, please. He's our System Institutional Research Director, and he'll be working closely with the THEC folks to get you the data you need when you need it, as well as get me the data I need when I need it, the rest of us. So we've got those two new people coming on board. We have an active search right now for a VP for development. We're in the throes of getting ready to bring people to campus. It's a very important position. As you know, we're closing out a capital campaign this fall that's $1 billion campaign, and we're at $1.017 billion right now. We will conclude that one. We will be starting to mobilize ideas and an approach toward the next campaign pretty quickly thereafter, so this hire is very, very important to us. Today I'd really like to focus my time on an agenda item you have, which is the University of Tennessee Master Plan. It's item E, I guess, on the action items, correct, Chair. And Master Plan is a result of 18 months of a process that began in earnest immediately after then Governor Bredesen challenged UT Knoxville to become a top 25 institution and to take a jump and journey in that direction. This plan is designed to conform to top 25 standards, and it also fits very well into the THEC agenda, in my estimation. Within the process, we engaged Bullock Smith and partners to work with us on the plan, and I'm pleased to introduce Nell Campbell from Bullock Smith, who we worked with before, actually, Bullock Smith in the 2001 plan. She'll provide the highlights of this plan to you all for your consideration. And our UT architect, George Chris, is here to answer any questions you may have. So now you can take it away.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and to share with you the results of this long 18-month process. The goals of the master plan were defined, and they began to be defined back in when Bullock Smith and Partners helped the university with their first master plan that we did together as a team in 1994. We then refined those goals in 2001, and were asked to look at them again in 2006. That process was postponed because, for a number of reasons, but primarily because they wanted time to review the standards that THEC set in place. So the goals for the University of Tennessee at Knoxville and the Institute of Agriculture are these, and you have perhaps had a chance to review those in the past. This iteration of the master plan takes those and sets forth governing principles. The Chancellor Cheek appointed a plethora of people to form a committee that crossed all aspects of the campus system on both campuses, and they developed these governing principles, which gave us our instructions for how to move forward with them in this process, this 18-month process. And the very top of that was to do things with the physical environment that would support this goal of UTK becoming a top 25 research university. We were assuming certain things, and you can see there limited undergraduate growth, but significant growth in graduate students, and therefore a lot of additional changes in space needed for class lab space and research space. So that was a change in the nature of the thoughts moving forward at the university. We continue to want to see the campus be pedestrian friendly. We are making sure that we are very diligent with the stewardship of the space that we have. We don't want to expand outside of our neighborhood. We want to be good stewards of the space, and we want to be responsible from an energy and environmental awareness point of view as well. Beginning in 1994, we began to establish certain overall organizing principles, and one of those is beginning to set forth a spine, an east-west spine, to reach from the historic Hill District all the way to the Institute of Agriculture. And you can only do that by moving parking to perimeter and making it comfortable for people to transfer then to other modes, pedestrian, bike, or using the transit system. We want to make sure we are engaging all of the historic, cultural, significant buildings and significant to the campus itself, all of those resources. We also, from 1994 to the present, have established, there are guidelines for how to deal with new development on campus. So this master plan takes those into consideration. Something different from past master plans, we no longer have the Cherokee campus as a part of this master plan. That has a master plan all to its own, but we continue to coordinate with them. Of course, also, we make sure that we are always in the know about what's going on in the city of Knoxville, in Knox County, and the surrounding communities, especially from a transportation network standpoint, so that we know how people need to come to campus, whether they be faculty, staff, or students. This process, again, was 18 months, but it has very specific steps. The first is to work with the university in understanding the existing conditions and then applying THEC standards to them. At that point, the full master plan committee gets involved, and we as designers and planners help them develop lots of different alternative strategies, and we put those all before them, and they say, no, that's terrible, or we're really intrigued by that, and we work through a number of months to refine those and come up with what is, in fact, the preferred development strategy. That preferred development strategy was then taken to the greater Knoxville campus community on both campuses and to the greater public through a series of public meetings and through website, through public meetings, through staff at the university being available. Comments and issues and ideas were heard, and recommendations were made that then caused the master plan to be further refined. So what you see before you today that I'm going to share with you is a result of that extensive review process and then what was presented to the Board of Trustees in June. So to orient you to the few images that I will be sharing with you, this is the existing campus. I'm sure a lot of you are intimately familiar with it. Cumberland Avenue, which is where the strip is located, is here, kind of northish. This is the Tennessee River, Lake Loudon, and Joe Johnson Drive and Andy Hill Boulevard. This is the existing pedestrian plaza, Ag Campus, the main campus, the Inland Stadium, the Hill. In doing the analysis, UT found that they are actually in deficit based on your standards, and the deficit is about 300,000 square feet, and that specific information is detailed and outlined in the master plan report. Here's the master plan as it stands today. What we are doing here, and to just describe to you quickly the color coding, those things that are in orange, and I hope you and I see the same thing when we see orange, like this building, and my hand is moving. All right. That is a funded project. It's an approved project. That is actually the new University Center's footprint there. So things that are in orange are approved. Building footprints that you see in red are near term. So we're talking, based on funding, of course, something that could happen, realistically speaking, within the coming decade. Midterm projects are in purple, and then long-term projects are those projects that don't necessarily have programmatic function yet. They're too far out there, and the reason we even go to the point of having that third phase is because as designers and as planners of space, we have to be, we can only use what we have, and we have buildings, and we have landscape and hardscape features in order to define space. And so those blue buildings help there be placement with, it essentially means that's where a building could go in the future. But that's way out there. That's probably a good 50 years plus. But it's a guideline, it's a way of allowing for there to be smart use of space as projects are known and as funds become available. And I'll talk you through just a little bit about how we got there. We saw back in the guiding principles that we want to make sure this campus continues on its path toward being pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly, other modes of transit other than just by car. And one of the ways to do that is to continue to make accessible, easy parking along the perimeter so that people can come from wherever they're coming from and leave their car in a secure, safe environment without taking up an awful lot of land area by building parking lots. But also we need to better identify how we are living with the roads on these campuses. And so what we're trying to do right now is have a better definition of how a loop road for the university system. One of the things in working with the city of Knoxville they're planning on doing is actually reducing Cumberland Avenue, again that's up here, which is a major route right now to get to and from and around campus, and that's going on a diet. So we need to come up with ways of having better use for campus. So defining this perimeter vehicular circulation route will help us to do that. It also allows us to reduce the numbers or the width of lanes of other streets inside the campus to make us have more room for sidewalks, bike lanes, and other modes of transit that are more friendly to pedestrians, including buses and trolleys. This plan furthers a defined open space. So where we have the current pedestrian plaza and hardscape open space here at this intersection where the library is, we extend that west and east, and then with a north-south axis as well towards Circle Park, where Andy Holt Tower forms the main axis at that point. And then also defining open spaces on the Ag campus, where we currently have only on-grade parking. We're proposing that become a quad-type space, a green space, a place for people rather than cars. And we can do that by suggesting that there be a parking garage built in an early phase on the Ag campus. The reason that this is important is that through all of our research and findings and looking at the way people move about this campus, the heart of campus at Knoxville is still and remains to this day the corner of Volunteer Boulevard East and Andy Holt, right there at the Star where the library is. Those two circles represent a 5-mile walk, a 5-minute walk. Totally different concept there. 5-minute walk from the Star to the inner ring, and then 7.5 minutes, so 15 minutes across from the hill to the end of what we're calling the Grand Mall, which is an extension of, but a major move in this master plan. And again, because we are designers working with built space in our real world, we have to have denser building areas. We have to have smart building areas. We have to know where we want buildings to be and where we want to preserve our environment and leave it green, leave it for grass, for trees, for people, for movement, but not for buildings. Here's a little definition of what we consider to be the natural boundaries. Those areas that are in green are currently owned UT properties. But when we talk about natural boundaries, which is a term that we like to use because it helps us to understand kind of the greater context, that's what that orange line signifies. That doesn't mean that UT owns the wastewater treatment plant down there on the river, nor do we own the railroad tracks. But if any of those properties within the orange boundary were to become available, then the university should consider acquiring that. So now we get to kind of the heart of and the pretty picture aspect of the master plan. These sector plans help us understand in greater detail how people will move through this space. And we just have a few that we're going to share with you today, kind of the heart of that new east-west and north-south axis of the pedestrian area. So we totally changed, and we are now in a new orientation. Neyland Stadium is north here. The existing library is down here at this corner. But this is that major intersection where that star was in your walking radius. And here at Volunteer, we're suggesting that that end of Volunteer Boulevard, when it is closed and reopened into a green space, we're going to show you some views of what that could feel like. A master plan, in addition to just being about space needs, can also help it to inform your vision and your sense of mission and excitement for the coming decades. And so I have 3 views to share with you. The first is looking down toward Andy Holt Tower. The second looks back across what is a new pedestrian way of getting up to the hill. Instead of going down a very steep grade in East Tennessee, we are plagued with topography issues, but no longer, because we are going to create a raised pedestrian area that will make it easy for someone to transition from the heart of campus up to the historic Hill District without having to go down to what will be a major transportation corridor if the loop road works out, which is Philip Fulmer Way, without obscuring the stadium. And the last view on this sector is a realignment of Pink Manning Pass at Volunteer in order to allow for us to have better bike lanes, have better pedestrian circulation, and give back some of those green spaces that by natural means car traffic takes away. So here's the view looking toward Andy Holt Tower with the Claxton building as it exists today here, looking toward the foothills of the Smokies. Here's a current view of what that's like, that student experience, plagued by cars. That's where most car traffic is on campus at this day. And here's what it could be, with a raised pedestrian way for bikes and pedestrians to get up to the hill. And at Peyton Manning Pass, looking eastward, you see the torchbearer. And the torchbearer remains, but the road can be modified and green space returned to the heart of campus. And the last sector to share with you is really the Grand Mall. The Grand Mall can be achieved by phasing. It can take the 3 phases. It can take 50 years. It can take however long it takes to get to a vision that puts people first in the heart of the campus. This is the Clarence Brown Theater. That is the library. So this is the existing pedestrian mall right now, with this being public space. And by the smart use of letting existing building spaces, this is called the hyper building. When that building is no longer needed at that location or it becomes unusable, unrenovatable, it's let go and that space becomes a public space. We have a view down to the west along the Grand Mall for you. You can see the sculpture as it stands today right in the heart of that area, Clarence Brown Theater, and then the axis that takes you all the way to the agriculture campus. And that is a really tight nutshell of 18 months of work and a pretty detailed plan. All these were many sectors that were involved. I'd be happy to take your questions, and if you have specific ones, I have a few more slides that might help answer those.
Questions?
Yes.
If you're going to eliminate a lot of the vehicle traffic, some of these problems or issues with accessibility?
If it wasn't planned for, there certainly would be, but the way the transportation aspect of the master plan has been put forth, all of the buildings everywhere will always have service space and handicap accessible spacing. You have to be able to serve all of your buildings with vehicles. It's just that we do not, what we're trying to do is keep the people who don't need that accessibility, be they service people or people who use those buildings who have the need to park right at the building. We want to kind of force everybody else to park more remotely and walk into the buildings or take transit or bike.
And the university actually already operates a shuttle service.
Yeah.
That's available for
you can kind of, all of the buildings that we're proposing have service courts, which all have accessible parking as well, right adjacent to a building. So you could get there from here. And you can go there wherever you want to go.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, the only thing we need now is money. I think the cost on the near term is $650 million.
right, George?
Yes.
Round numbers. So, I mean, it's a great plan, but that's where we're at. And I appreciate your time, and that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. DiPietro.
And I'd like to thank Joe for making that part of his report, and then that item is on the agenda later on.
Sure. As we have someone here from the Ford Foundation, perhaps you could talk to him about those dollars. Okay, we're now ready for our action items. Our constitutional officers are going to have to leave about 2:15. We have 9 action items, so we have 30 minutes to get through those, and so I want us as commission members to sort of strap in and let's get through those. Okay, our first one is our Lambeth Campus Feasibility Study. We'll call on Dr. Russ Deaton to present.
It's going to be up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission. I'll try to move swiftly through this, but also take time for questions, of course. Some background on this. Lambeth University, as you know, ceased operations June 30th this past year, same day declaring bankruptcy. There is a tentative deal in place, I assume it's still tentative, to sell the campus to a local stakeholder group involving the city and county governments, West Tennessee Healthcare Group, as well as the Jackson Energy Authority. As those events were developing, you had the 2011 appropriations bill, which tasked THEC with doing a feasibility study to determine if the state should obtain the assets and facilities of the Lambeth campus. This really operated on sort of 2 tracks per the legislation, as the study is trying to determine whether this is in fact feasible. Further language in the legislation went ahead and laid out conditions that that the Board of Regents would have to meet, further approvals necessary, as well as providing about $5 million in funding should this come to fruition and should it pass. So essentially it's sort of a 2-track process. The study has been emailed to you. It's on the website. When you download it, it's about 60 pages. However, the text itself is about 20, so you don't have to curl up over a weekend to get through it all. But some key observations from it. First, we conclude that there are no obvious gaps in the educational offerings in the area. Jackson-Madison County has a pretty rich variety of private schools, proprietary institutions, public institutions already there. The presence of Memphis on the Lambeth campus would, of course, add a very affordable public university presence in the area that would be sorely needed, particularly in light of the goals of CCTA and increasing educational attainment. Secondly, and I see Dr. Raines in the back, I would commend Dr. Raines and her staff for developing programs that really fit the local workforce needs that we can identify in the study. Jackson-Madison County General Hospital, which is by far the largest employer in Madison County, is about a mile and a half tops from the campus. And so the nursing programs that Dr. Raines and her staff envision there really do fit the local workforce needs going forward. Lambeth is, of course, an older campus. It's been in existence for over 160 years, and the facilities have some issues there. They generally fall into two buckets, we say. The near-term issues are really related to life safety, Americans with Disability Act issues, getting it up to code and up to standard. THEC and TBR tried to develop a very rough cost estimate for those of about $3.5 million. That's sort of as a max. It is possible Memphis could program around certain issues, could handle certain issues within the normal course of operations without having to have projects that rise to the level of a capital maintenance project. And as well, there are about $15 million in more long-term facilities issues. The campus, I think, in the judgment of the facility staff at TBR, is much like the condition of the rest of the TBR facilities, which is to say it's operational, it's in good serviceable order. However, it has some long-term issues that have to be addressed looking ahead 5 to 10 years. Looking ahead further, some more conditions. The state, again, has conditionally provided $5 million in operating funding for TBR, for Lambeth, for 2011-12. It intends for there to be declining amounts in the subsequent 3 years. Other revenues, of course, student fee revenue would accrue to Memphis there, and of course any outcomes produced there would, like they would everywhere, contribute to the University of Memphis funding formula. And Memphis projects about 1,000 FTE by the 2015-16 year. In my judgment, that is very attainable and feasible. Madison County is about 100,000 people. It is growing. There's a significant young population there. You have the surrounding counties. That is a very attainable goal. So I guess in conclusion, the study does recommend the state acquire the assets of Lambeth. It concludes that it is in fact feasible for Memphis to operate there efficiently. It is not without costs, not without risks. Some of the costs you saw on the previous slide with facilities, and it comes with two conditions as we were required to put forth from the legislation. The first one is we ask TBR and Memphis to develop a plan to address those near-term issues, primarily life safety and ADA. Develop a plan to address those, whether by operations, through programming, or through raising funds, if necessary, from a non-state source, and submit a plan twice a year to THEC to review those as they address the near-term facilities issues. And secondly, for TBR to simply report back on how the campus is developing. Have they met the enrollment projections? How are things going there? Further condition of the facilities. Have they satisfied all accreditation issues? Just sort of an assessment of how the campus unfolds over time and as they move forward. In a nutshell, that is the study. Chancellor Morgan has tomorrow called a meeting of the Board of Regents to consider the THEC study. There are further steps to take, but this is, in effect, Mr. Chairman, the first domino to get the process rolling. I'll be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Russ, I actually curled up with this thing last weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Deep.
And if you look at Table 17, I don't know if you've got it with you or not. You probably do. What I would ask the Commission is, what is the plan for the increased need of formula impact of this plan? It ramps up over time from about 600,000 to about 3 million by 2015-16. Would the plan of the Commission be, as you formulate your budget and make those requests in that year, to include that $3 million that's additionally needed?
Yes, we would. Essentially, we would, as we calculate the Memphis formula, this would, of course, be part of it. We would essentially identify for TBR and for Memphis what of their formula calculation is attributable to the activities at Lambeth. The outcomes produced there, the facilities, much like if you had increased outcomes at any other campus. Right. So it would not be separated out, but it would be within the Memphis allocation as part of the regular workings of the formula.
Right. And, please don't misconstrue my comments to be negative about the feasibility study or the effort of the University of Memphis to do this with Lambeth. But, I'd really be remiss if I didn't speak to the Commission from my perspective about two things and call your attention to it. One is my concern actually about not necessarily the need for the $3 million here, but the additional need that we continually be systemic about, I guess, from the standpoint of saying to our appropriators, we're chronically underfunded in the formula areas from the get-go. And unless we have an approach with our appropriators that say this commission, and I guess this is the challenge of the commission, is going to start to recommend to figure out a way to fix that and make these appropriations better, then by default, if we end up moving into this equation with Lambeth, we by nature of the process, we make this pie get smaller, not bigger, and we're being asked to do more. We're educating more. And then if I remember the numbers right on the formula approach to funding from the standpoint of the Complete College Act, if everybody did 1% better, and that's not going to happen, but just as a concept, if everybody did 1% better across the entire higher ed system here, state-supported, it would take about $3.5 million to fund that, and I don't believe at this point we know how we'd do that. So, I don't misconstrue my comments to be specific to this feasibility study, but to the systemic nature of saying we continue to chronically ask higher education to do more with fewer state dollars, and this has an impact too. I would leave it at that and just want to make the commissioners realize that we've got this problem.
Well, if I could, I'd like to respond and thank Joe for the way he just said that. From the very beginning, back during the legislative session, when there was beginning talk of this, he raised those concerns, and we've talked about them. So this isn't something that, I just appreciate his being forthright all the way through. Second, I've started in a very informal way broaching the subject. I think, John, you have too, about we now have a formula that rewards outcomes. it doesn't take a whole lot of money to do that, on a small scale. I think if we have a more concerted effort as we get closer to the session, who knows how revenues are going to be, but I think that's our best approach.
Sure. And, I would say that it's our responsibility, too, as presidents and as chancellors, and for our presidents of our campuses and our chancellors to be willing to advocate for that, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chairman, and I really don't disagree with anything that Joe has said. It does help us focus on that. If we achieve the outcomes, then we certainly hope the policy or the response is that those outcomes are funded. Because if they're not, it creates an entirely different dynamic in terms of all the work that's being done. We want to be in a position at the Board of Regents to be as supportive as we can possibly be of UT Knoxville achieving its goals, just as we want them to be supportive of us achieving our goals. And implicit in that is the belief that we do have, if not a contract, at least an understanding with the state of Tennessee that as we do what we've been asked to do, then those outcomes will be recognized, and as funding decisions are made, that they'll be taken into account. So we're together.
Any additional comment? If not, we'll entertain the motion to approve the recommendations.
I move approval of the item.
All right. You have a motion and in a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Our next item, we'll ask Dr. Duran to come up and talk about the academic policy revisions.
Chairman White, members of the Commission, Dr. Rhoda. Before you is the proposal to delegate final approval of community college programs to the Board of Regents. Just a little bit of background. The Complete College Tennessee has directed us, the TBR, in consultation with the Commission, to develop a unified comprehensive community college within the TBR. The program approval route is one such effort that is being made to support that unified comprehensive coordinated program in a community college system that is now developing. Just another little bit of background, the Board of Regents has always had authority to approve, as final approval, certificates that are shorter than 1 year in length. And almost two-thirds of the existing certificates are shorter than two-thirds in length, of a year in length. So that part is not different. Here are the differences. The letter of intent to plan, the feasibility study, will stop with the board. The final approval will stop with the board. The TBR will expedite replication of program where other community colleges wish to have an approved program. For example, if there's a process technology certificate at one institution and it's suitable for the mission, and a second or third or fourth community college might have adequate faculty, the adequate resources, and compelling workforce need to develop that program, then that would be expedited. Here are the things that do not change. The THEC will certainly have retain the authority to monitor the quality and the productivity of all these programs, associates and certificates of any length. The TBR will use THEC program approval standards, as you now find in the policy. TBR will routinely, as they do now, report to THEC of approved actions. THEC will obviously enter those approved actions into the state academic program inventory, so these programs would be in play for the formula funding, the outcomes formula. And finally, the Commission will continue to monitor, as it does now, these programs after they have been approved. With that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions. If not, staff recommends approval.
Questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendations.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. While you're there, if you could go ahead and cover the new academic programs.
There are 5 new academic programs. Mr. Chair, would you be pleased to approve them by one action altogether?
Okay.
The first is a Chattanooga State Technical Certificate in Process Technology. It's 24 hours in length. This would be one of the programs that hereafter the Board of Regents will have final authority to approve. This is in direct response to Bacher Polysilicon, the firm establishing itself in the Chattanooga area. The certificate will be a part of an existing associate degree, so it will be mounted with no new costs. The program is supposed to, or projected to, produce 70 graduates or completers in year 1, 120 in year 2, and 75 in year 3. Individuals who complete this certificate should be equipped to work in chemical processing, oil and gas production, metal and minerals processing, would be able to operate equipment, instrumentation, computer applications, and do troubleshooting for manufacturing. Comments, questions? The second of the 5 is a proposed community college certificate in all 13 community colleges, which is a 41-hour general education certificate. As you know from several years now, this 41-hour core is common to all community colleges and all state universities. The intent with this certificate is to award the student a credential at a major milestone in an associate degree. It's proposed improved transfer. It will give that student a credential to present when seeking employment. It will be developed at no new costs, as no new courses are required. The third is a proposed Master's in Geosciences at East Tennessee State University. This is a master's program that will carry 2 concentrations, one in geospatial analysis and the other in paleontology. East Tennessee State has been working with a terrific opportunity afforded them with the Gray Fossil Site since 2002. This is a major fossil site just on the outside of Johnson City, and ETSU has a strong presence there. ETSU has received external funding for a natural history museum, which is right there on the site. A third type of resource that's been in place for some time is the Sundquist Center of Excellence in Paleontology. And a fourth preparation for establishing this program is that the department had 2 departments, geology and geosciences, have merged, and they have quite a critical mass of paleontologists and professionals there right now. No new space or equipment will be needed. ETSU has renovated a residence hall. It also has acquired a Valley Brook property recently where the labs for the geosciences and paleontology will be located. Geospatial analysis is really a wide range of geographic mapping for water use, for global climate change, for positioning of roads, anything having to do with the natural landscape, and also water use. There are many jobs available for persons so prepared. Paleontology, the graduates of the paleontology concentration are expected to find employment in higher education, also in museums and national parks and other areas where the preservation of fossil is important. ETSU received in 2002 an $8 million federal grant to work through the fossil site. They received a $2 million private gift to underwrite the early costs of the museum.
Mr. Chairman, one quick, the remote sensing, does that have anything to do with seismic?
It could very well.
It was in that connection, I'm just wondering, is there any tie-in with what we're doing on the western end of the state, with the University of Memphis? I would hope if there is, because that remote sensing is particularly costly.
Well, the University of Memphis Center in Seismology is obviously a good resource, good partner for the ETSU.
Just hope that we don't have two major investments in remote sensing. So
We'll follow up.
let's follow up.
Thank you. The fourth of five is a Doctor of Social Work program at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. This is a post-master's clinical program. It will not compete with the existing UTK PhD in social work. The DSW is sort of a new credential. It's in the family of those practitioner, clinician credentials that you've seen come forward in the last few years, like the research, like the practitioner program in nursing, PharmD, the audiology doctorate, the physical therapy clinician doctorate. So it is not a research degree, it's for clinicians. It will be delivered essentially through distance technology. The faculty to support this program are in place. They have been repositioned from the consolidation of UT social work programs in Memphis and in Nashville and on the Knoxville campus. 2 years ago, you may remember that when the University of Tennessee elected to take its presence out of Memphis in the Masters in Social Work, there were conversations with the University of Memphis, wherein the University of Memphis has established, the Commission did approve, a Masters in Social Work. So the Memphis area, the region, the Mid-South region, they're served by the University of Memphis program and also through the online UTK program. The final proposed program is a PhD in epidemiology at the University of Memphis. This program is designed to serve the urban population with its particular public health needs. Epidemiology is one of several pieces of an accreditable college of public health. Certainly, the University of Memphis has a very healthy master's program. It has one of the three required PhD programs, and this will be number 2. It is a postmaster's program. It does require 63 hours for completion. It is designed to be accreditable. It draws on support resources there in Memphis, including the St. Jude's Hospital, UT Health Sciences Center, Memphis Shelby County Health Department, the Urban Child Institute, and Methodist University Hospital. So it works in league with many entities, healthcare entities in Memphis. The need for such a program and professionally prepared graduates is certainly acute. The University of Memphis is not requesting any new dollars for startup. They are supporting the program through additional tuition revenues generated from a very, very successful master's program. Also, they have received sizable gifts from the Memphis community over the last 3 years to support the School of Public Health. That's 5.
All right.
With that, staff recommends approval.
Any questions about these 5 new academic programs? If not, we'll entertain the motion to approve all 5.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second to approve all 5 new academic programs. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. We'll now call on Dr. Stephanie Beller-Chase to present the recommendations for authorization of new institutions, approval of new programs, and conditional approval of new programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Dr. Roda, members of the Commission. I have 2 action items for your consideration today. The Post-Secondary Advisory Committee has recommended that the institutions in Section 1D1 and the new programs listed in Section 1D2 be granted temporary authorization and approval. Also, there's some new programs that are in Section D3, and they have recommended that they be granted conditional approval.
All right. Do we have any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Okay. The second action item is recommendations of the staff for the reappointment of 2 committee members, Mr. Larry Griffin and Mrs. Lethea Sweatman. They serve 3-year terms.
All right. We have a motion to approve the recommendation.
So move.
Second.
All right. Further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
And now Julie Woodruff will present the proposed rule revisions.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Today, the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions and DPSA is asking that you vote to adopt certain rule revisions, all of which are included in your materials. The activities that resulted in these revisions began in August 2009. At that time, DPSA held workshops to provide training to the staff of the non-exempt institutions. As a result of comments offered during those training sessions, DPSA announced a willingness to revisit any rule or policy if it could be shown that the regulatory purpose of the rule or policy was no longer valid or could be accomplished through means less stringent to the institutions. Over the past 2 years, there has been much discussion with institutions that have availed themselves of this process, and in fact, we have taken several of those suggestions and implemented them. Most recently, DPSA staff met with 3 groups of institutions, the unaccredited, nationally accredited, and regionally accredited, as well as the Tennessee Association of Independent Colleges and Schools. Following these meetings, DPSA drafted proposed rule revisions and sent those revisions to all authorized institutions and interested persons via email on May 27, 2011. The email gave recipients the opportunity to comment and asked that all comments be submitted by June 24, 2011. We received substantive comments from just 4 of our institutions. A detailed description of these comments is included in your materials. After considering the comments, DPSA placed the proposed revisions on the agenda of the July 7, 2011 meeting of the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions. At the meeting, the committee voted to recommend adoption by the Commission of all rule revisions. Today, I will highlight 3 of the revisions in your packet. First, Rule 1540-01-02-.06, which starts on page 7 of your materials, regulates the names of non-exempt institutions. In the past, the rule has required that nationally accredited or unaccredited institutions that use the term college in the name include a qualifier, for example, technical college. The revised rule will allow institutions to use the word college in the institution name without a qualifier as long as the institution is accredited, meets the definition of college, and offers at least 1 degree. The revisions benefit institutions by ensuring that the name of an institution appropriately describes the institution and by permitting nationally accredited institutions to use the word college in their names without a qualifier. Second, on page 9 of your materials is Rule 1540-01-02-.083B. This rule currently restricts the use of traditional degree names to regionally accredited institutions unless the institution receives an exception. The revision to the rule describes in detail what an institution must provide in order to receive an exception from the executive director. 2 institutions commented that it was inappropriate to distinguish between nationally and regionally accredited institutions in the rule. Note, however, that the proposed revision does not change the accreditation distinction currently in effect, a distinction that the Commission has formally recognized since at least 1991. DPSA opines that the revision provides an institution with a better understanding of how to plan for and obtain an exception and will help to ensure that students of nationally accredited institutions that receive an exception will have more options available if they choose to transfer credits. Third, on page 28 of your materials is a proposal to add a new rule, Rule 1540-01-02-.26. This rule describes when the Commission will return a percentage of regulatory fees to institutions. The addition of .26 is a result of discussions during the 2009 rulemaking proceeding when fees were raised. DPSA crafted this rule to ensure that it collects no more than is necessary to cover its cost in the annual budget and to maintain a reasonable surplus. This new rule will benefit institutions by ensuring that excess collections will be returned to the institutions. If you vote today to adopt the rule revisions, the next step is to send the revisions to the Attorney General, where the legality and constitutionality of the revisions will be reviewed. Once approved by the Attorney General, the rules will be sent to the Secretary of State's office pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 4-5-202A2. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendations.
Motion.
Second? Second. Okay, on this one, we'll have a roll call.
Ms. Atkinson? Yes. Mr. Bone?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes? Yes. Mr. Isaacs?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Yes.
Mr. Walden?
Yes.
Mayor Wharton? Mr. White?
Yes.
Motion passed, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Our next item we are already familiar with, but we'll ask Dr. Russ Deaton to come up and give us his recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, having heard the formal presentation a little while ago, I would simply applaud UT for a very bold and thorough master plan and recommend it for approval.
All right. Offer motion.
So move.
Is there a second? Second. All right. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. We're now ready for Dr. Deaton to give some recommendations on operating budgets.
Sure. The operating budgets are on tab 1F. You have the accompanying tables. I would point out a couple of key facts. These are the first budgets to 2011-12 year, that is after the Federal American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or the era, as we sometimes say. So it would, of course, exclude about $280 million that was going to higher education as a result of the federal intervention that's no longer in these budgets. First budget without that. Tuition and fees you'll see increase by an average of 9 to 10% by sector. And total formula need, if you add up appropriations, tuition revenue, et cetera, gets to about 86% of the formula calculation. With approval, we will forward these to Finance and Administration.
Thank you. Questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Our last action item is to consider the election of the 2011-2012 officers.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that the current officers be reelected to serve for the next year. As we all know, the chair is White, their vice chair is Cato Johnson and Charles Mann, and the secretary, Mr. Wharton. And I'd like to say that you all have done a great job, and we'd like to reelect you. I'd make that motion.
Thank you, sir. Okay,
I second that.
Thank you.
Also, I'm sorry, White would be nominated to serve on the audit committee for another 3 years.
Second. All right. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. It's been truly a pleasure and an honor to serve as your chair, and thank you so much for that vote of confidence for another year. Those are all of our action items. For those who do need to leave early, thank you so much for being here. Those who are going to get that, hang around a little while longer, we're going to go into our information items, and we're going to start with the Lottery Scholarship Annual Report. We'll ask Mr. David Wright to come up for this item. Sorry.
Good afternoon. I just like to take this opportunity to announce the release of the 2011 Tennis Education Rotary Scholarship Program annual report. And this report contains the outcomes of the scholarship program through fall 2010. And then this report, the full report, will be available at the THEC's website after this meeting. So in this presentation, I just like to hit the highlight of the report, as at the last commission meeting, I gave some preliminary result. So I just want to give a quick highlight of this report. So the full report is available at the THEC will be available at the THEC website. And then this year, we added a couple of new analysis, and one is in-depth analysis of scholarship retention and graduation rate. This year we provided like a scholarship retention rate by gender, ethnicity, and income, and also graduation rate by those demographic type. And also another new addition is the scholarship recipient and employment during college. So last year we reached agreement with the Labor Department that allow us to link their workforce information. So utilizing that, we are able to identify information such as like a number of students who employ while they're in college, and then median earnings of such students. So I thought I'd like to share that some of that kind of information today. So before going there, I'd just like to give a quick summary of the findings. And in fall 2010, approximately 25,000 first-time freshmen received a Rotary scholarship, which is almost same as the last year. And then in public institution, the Rotary recipient account for 66% of total first-time freshmen at public institution. And then I just giving here the profile tells freshmen, like female account for 56%, African American student accounting for 30%, 1% increase from last year, and then 21% of students attend Rotary recipient attend community college, and the median income was about $62,000. And also 56% of freshmen met both ACT and high school GPA criteria. And then about 20% students who are on Rotary took remedial and the developmental course as well. And also Rotary student, freshmen, on average, they take 14.2 credit hours per semester. And then part-time enrollment account for 2.1% of the entire Rotary freshmen. And 45% of students are also eligible for Pell Grant, and then 13.3% of freshmen receive both TELS and TSAA, and lastly, at least one parent with a college degree. 62.8% of students have at least one parent with a college degree. And then a one-year scholarship renewal rate is 54%, which is roughly same as last year. And 6-year graduation rate is 55%. This is for the fall 2004 freshmen. And then with the scholarship intact, that's 30%. And also we look at the retention rate for students who lost a scholarship, and approximately 2/3 of students came back to school even after they lost a scholarship. And then and the college retention rate for Rotary students was roughly 80%. And then here I like to share some of the findings on the scholarship recipients and employment during college. So this chart shows the percentage of employed Rotary freshmen for 2006 through fall 2009. And in fall 2006, approximately 70% of first-time freshmen on TELS were employed somehow. And then their median earning was $2,000. And this is the median earnings for the fall term. So it's not like annualized. This is just the fall term. And as you can see, the rate of employed TELS students were declining as the economy going down. And in 2009, about 56% of TELS freshmen were employed while they are freshmen, and their median earning was $1,862. And this is in 2009 constant dollars. And then this is also showing the median earnings of for 2009 TELS first and freshman by attempted credit hours. So as you can see, there is a wide variation in terms of the earnings made by first and freshman by credit hours. So those who took fewer than 12 credit hours made a median earning of $3,866, and then the median earning went down as credit hours goes up. And then lastly, I just like to show the one-year scholarship renewal rate by employment status. And as a total, 57% of students who are employed renewed a scholarship, whereas 52% of students who are not employed are renewed a scholarship in 1 year. So there may be some correlation between employment and scholarship renewal, but we have to go into further analysis to really understand what's happening here. So, and you can find more information at through our website, and you can download the full report at the THEC website after this meeting. So, yes.
Go back to the slide on income versus number of hours credit. That one.
Yeah.
So, statistically, are those significantly different? I mean, I assume the 3,800 is, but and the 29 might be. But
probably.
You looked at them that way?
Oh, I didn't really look at whether it is
different.
statistically significant or not, but probably I guess it may be statistically significant. But at the same time, we have to control for many other factors. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? No. Thank you. All right. Our next item is the student loan default report.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Do you care if Dr. Rhoda discusses just a little bit about the changes to the lottery scholarship that the legislature recently enacted? I know you alluded to two of them earlier in the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. There was a change in the part dealing with dual enrollment. There are two basic areas. One dealing with dual enrollment that allows more hours of dual enrollment to be funded by the lottery scholarship. And the second area dealt with that was dual enrollment. Then the lottery scholarship itself restored the cap of 120 hours that would be covered by the scholarship. And we've had in fact, you spoke to that at the last commission meeting. As well as allowing the use of the lottery scholarship during the summer. Now, there may have been some finer points there, but those were the two changes. Now, I probably should mention the summer is almost over, but one of our summer projects is to look at additional changes in the lottery scholarship. But those are the two that the THEC board met earlier this week and put in rules to implement those changes.
If a student's taking a summer course, how much will the lottery cover of that?
David?
Let's see, it's essentially, whereas before you were getting $2,000 for the fall and the spring, summer is an eligible full-time term if you're enrolled, so it could cover up to $2,000, but it's prorated if you take somewhere between 6 and 12.
Okay.
You have to take at least 6 hours.
Another question I had was about the retroactive status, making it retroactive to the class of 2009. Could you speak a little bit about that?
No. I'm just blanking.
The 120-hour credit cap, the state legislature made it retroactive to the classes of 2009 and 2010. So those going into their sophomore and junior year will actually have the 120-hour credit cap that was not in place when they entered as freshmen.
That was, I don't think I'm out of turn to say that was purely a cost containment measure. I think pretty much all of us wanted to try to make that, hold everybody harmless from the 120-hour cap that's currently in school and allow everybody immediately to benefit from the summer school. But the politics of it and the different finance committees, it just had to be a lower number than that. So that's where we ended up, and that's why.
Are we concerned that that's going to impact the graduation rate, since there's probably students that are double majored or have changed their majors that will reach 120 hours and not have the money to finish their last semester or two?
Well, I'd answer yes, it would be a concern, obviously, and we'd hope it wouldn't come to that. But again, the point was made, as David said, it was cost containment, trying to make the cost neutral package, if you will, of those changes. may recall when we had Jamie Marasotis, the CEO of Lumina, in testifying before Senate Education, and he specifically noted that and said, you know, among other states, that's a realistic, reasonable expectation for a scholarship to cover the standard for a baccalaureate degree, and then we would work with students. Of course, that also, if there are students are in programs for which require more than 120 hours, they would be exceptions made for that. But working with those students, the motivated students.
Are you making those exceptions for double majors or just those degrees that require more than 120 hours?
Those degrees.
Okay.
And that, that was an unfortunate consequence of the choice that had to be made to, pick some type of not a phase-in date, but an implementation date. I think the choice, though, was to try to make it to where the students who were beginning their junior year at least would know in advance. And I realize in some, majors where you have to begin taking major preparatory courses, calculus and such, earlier on, there are going to be some people that were damaged by that. But the idea was to not change horses in the middle of the stream for people who were in their senior year, but who were going into their junior year.
And I would note, Zach did, after that meeting, spoken to it at the last meeting, and then sent me a very thoughtful email on the consequences of what this could mean to some students. So continue working through the issues. But we are at that point. The big picture, the lottery has done its job. It's generated a great deal of revenue for the scholarship program, but the program is now costing more per year than the lottery is generating per year, and that was the kind of decision that had to be made.
You sent an email to us a while ago. I'm sorry, David, because I'm interrupting your time. That they're actually looking at changing more requirements this summer.
Right. Yeah, and we have not really convened on that yet, have we, David? Has that?
No, we've been asked to provide some background material to the legislature, but it has not been.
Yeah, it'll be a legislative, not at the staff level, it'll be a legislative committee, and we'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Deb.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the commission. I would like to, before I begin, just recognize Takashi Yanagira, who was just up here. This is Takashi's, it pains me to say, this is Takashi's last commission meeting with us. I returned from vacation to the news that he's going to be leaving us on September the 1st. Was going to be his he'll start a new job at the University of D.C. Actually, it's a community college function that the University of D.C. has now begun. So he'll be the IR director at a new institution in Washington, D.C. So it's an exciting opportunity for him, and I think eventually down the road also he'll be enrolling in a PhD program up there. So great opportunity for Takashi, but I want to thank him for 4 tremendous years. I mean, a lot of the things that were being presented in the meeting earlier this morning were his work. Of course, the lottery scholarship report, which has grown year by year, and I noticed this year we broke the 100-page mark. So anyway, Takashi, thank you, and we'll miss you, certainly. This is not my report. It actually was written by a Thomas Sanford, who is on our staff. But Thomas today is up at the University of Minnesota defending his dissertation, and I just got a text from him a moment ago saying that it's official, so he is now Dr. Sanford. But in his absence, I told him I would present the slides on this white paper that he did on default rates. Some time ago, a new default rate report came out, and it talked about the high default rates, how they're going back up again after many years of decreasing. And I just asked Thomas, well, are they too high, or are they about what you'd expect given the nature of the students and the institutional characteristics of our institutions? And so he set about to looking into that, and several months later he came out with this report. So it is not a legislatively required report. It's just something that we were interested in and want to share the results with you very quickly. Over the last, so the basic overall context for this issue is that over the last decade, tuition and fees has risen faster than inflation, healthcare, median family income. Student loan debt has doubled over the last 15 years from about $12,000 to $23,000. Over a third of students graduate with what's termed unmanageable debt, which is defined as loan payments exceeding 8% of pre-tax income. And
last year for the first time, America's student loan debt surpassed its amount of credit card debt. After several years of default rates decreasing over the last 3 years in a row, the default rates have gone back up again. Not solely for this reason, but it's within this context that the feds, first of all, expanded the cohort default rate period from which the student is tracked from 2 to 3 years. I guess what I should say is default means when a student enters repayment after they've left school, separated from school after a certain time has passed, then they have to begin repaying the loans. And if they're in that repayment period and have not made a payment and they enter into default, they go into the statistic. And so the catchment period over which students are tracked is now going to be extended from 2 to 3 years, which will cause the default rate to go up. You might have also heard the term gainful employment. It basically means that certain occupational training programs can participate in federal Title IV aid only if they prepare students for gainful employment in a recognized occupation. And there are a couple of tests for that. One is a debt-to-income ratio of graduates after they graduate, if their debt to income is a certain amount. And then there's a loan repayment test that if a certain amount of their students are not in repayment, then the institution's in danger of losing eligibility for Title IV programs. And so these default rates are more important than ever now in terms of determining institutions' eligibility for federal loan and grant programs. Sorry for these numbers are a bit small, but what it shows is that we saw recently that saw on the last slide that the default rates are going back up. But what are they? These are national default rates by sector. In the public sector, you look at the 3-year rate, about 11%, private colleges about 8%, and for-profit sector about 25%. But remember, this study is going to look at net of institutional factors and student characteristics. Are those default rates about what you would expect? And that's what I'll get to in just a moment. If you just lump all of Tennessee's institutions together, public, private, for-profit, we are at a default rate of about 16% compared to that national rate of 12%. What you see is Tennessee had the 6th highest average default rate nationally and the 3rd highest among the SREB states. The ones that are in red in the little table there are the sectors in which Tennessee's default rate exceeds that of the SREB. So our public 2-year sector, public 4-year, private 2-year, private 4-year, and our for-profit 4-year sectors have higher than our SREB averages. Other than that, we're doing great. Sorry. If you look at the share of students who are in repayment, just let's focus on the green, the for-profit. What it shows on the left is that about 22% of the for-profit graduates are former students are in the repayment period, and yet they represent 36% of the defaulters. And conversely, if you look in the red, privates are about 1/4 of students who are in repayment, but only about 15% of the students who are in default. So it just gives you a sense of the share of the default population relative to the share of the repayment population. Now, the report takes a lot of pages to get to this slide, so I'm oversimplifying, but basically what we did was we put a lot of factors into a regression model to say, okay, given things like the percentage of the student body that's low income, that's minority, that's part-time, looking at different institutional characteristics, the net cost of the institution's grad rate, net of all that stuff, are our default rates higher than they ought to be? And the answer is, on average, yes. They're still higher than we would predict. On average, the second bullet, for-profit institutions, 3-year default rates were higher than the public and not-for-profit. Probably not too surprising. And the difference between our public institutions' actual and predicted was greater than the difference found for the old, we used the 2005-2010 funding formula peers as a comparison group for purposes of graphical representation. On average, we found that higher graduation rates were associated with lower default rates, and higher net costs were associated with higher default rates. And that's probably not too surprising. I would like to call your attention to page 62 of the report in the mail out in the materials there. It's Appendix D. That's kind of the money table there. It's the one that it has for every institution in Tennessee. It's got the sector that institution is in and the 3-year default rate of that institution that's predicted, and then the actual. What I notice when I look at that table is, even though we have very few institutions whose default rate that was predicted, the actual default rate was lower than what was predicted, really the model, our actual default rates weren't too far off what the model predicted. So in most cases, it's nothing that I would get too worked up about. I will say, as a way of calling out in a positive fashion, we had 2 public institutions whose default rates were lower than predicted by the model, which means they're sort of outperforming their demographic. That was Tennessee State and Tennessee Tech. Dr. Bell already left, so I'm sorry he didn't get to brag on that. In the private sector, the ones that outperformed their demographic were Belmont, Lincoln Memorial, Fisk, Lemoyne-Owen, and Milligan. And then among the associates colleges, Kaplan Career Institute, Nashville Auto Diesel College, and NOSI College of Art. Just in general, the range of the actual default rates was lowest for doctoral institutions, and then next highest for masters, and then a little bit higher still for bachelor's institutions, and highest yet for the associates colleges. The literature does say there are things you can do as an institution to manage your default rate. Of course, one of the things has to do with granting forbearances to students and sort of keeping them out of the default rate statistic until they can get back on their feet. But in general, in terms of doing things that are proactive, talks about default management team on campus, and appointing actually a point person who's the default prevention manager. Institute an early warning system, which would be where the school would do a study of what are the predictors of later on default of their students, and then when you see students who are getting into trouble, like they're about to flunk out or they're not going to class, or whatever the predictors might be, you flag those students and counsel them and try to head them off at the pass. This one on avoid giving students more in their financial aid package than their direct costs. I think that was something that we saw in literature related to some of the proprietary schools that they were actually awarding students more aid than they actually needed, and that's kind of was said as a no-no. And of course, better education. So just wanted to give you all some better context for interpreting these headlines that you often read about default rates. And as I said, while it is true that we do have high default rates, when you look at them in the context of what you would predict based on a model, we're not too far off, but we could always do better. Yes, sir.
Just a question. The numbers you show by institution, are those for any student that went to that institution that got a loan irrespective of the duration of their attendance? Somebody who drops out after the first year,
yeah,
get captured in those rates?
They would be captured. What I don't know is how the multiple attendance thing works out. I'm not familiar enough with the methodology on that, but yeah.
But could Thomas be able to mine that data to look at completers, for example?
Yeah, because this dropout is a heavy predictor of this. So yeah, if you wanted to look at predictors, I'm sure it would be much lower. Completers, I'm sure it would be much lower. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry if I missed this. So the students you looked at are only those who had achieved or were trying to achieve an undergraduate degree?
No. Anybody at an associate's college or above
so if I went to
received a federal loan.
Anybody who got a loan. So if a student had gone to undergraduate school and then on to a law school,
right,
it'd be the total debt over the duration.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I noticed, obviously, there's this correlation, or you did this regression analysis about cost of the institution and the correlation or regression analysis with default.
Right.
Did you look at total debt that somebody owes on an individual basis and see whether it correlated?
I would imagine that'd be
It'd be
pretty
similar.
highly correlated to that difference between cost. The specific answers, I don't think so. He would have had that as a separate variable. But I don't know what he might have made that choice because it was highly related to net cost.
Seems intuitively correct.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your questions and for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll now ask Ms. Katrina Miller to come up to give us a status. First to the top.
Thank you for your time. First of all, I want to report that we just finished our first federal visit and audit, and that went really well. So literally we finished it yesterday, so very exciting. We should have a report from the federal government soon, and we will be sure to share that with you, the commission members, when that comes out. Secondly, one of the major projects that we're working on is integrating the Common Core state standards into our pre-service teacher training. And we recently convened a committee of deans of colleges of education and arts and sciences, as well as TBR system and UT system staff, to design this statewide curriculum to implement the Common Core into pre-service. This is going to be one of our biggest initiatives to roll out, and we're one of the first states to do this in the nation. So we've been asked to speak at a national committee of the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association, as well as the Chief State School Officers, to talk about how we need to transform pre-service training to implement standards. We just had our initial planning session, but we'll be rolling that out in the next year with a vendor selection, and we just wanted to give you a really brief update on that. But the next item on your agenda is with Wesley Hall, and he's going to talk about another initiative that we're working on, which is our STEM professional development.
Thank you. Under Race to the Top, as you already know, higher education was charged with providing STEM professional development to STEM K-12 teachers. To answer that call, in February 1st, the top staff issued an RFP to solicit proposals from public and private institutions from across the state. When the RFP closed, we received 36 proposals, and we formed a review committee to evaluate and review those to recommend proposals for funding. Out of 36 proposals, the committee recommended funding 11 for $1.8 million, which leaves $4.2 million for the second round of funding, which we anticipate will open in 2012. This next slide was included in your packet. It's a list of proposals and institutions that were awarded funding, and I'll give you a minute to digest that, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take those.
So this is in our book?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I found it. Sorry. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, thank you. All right, we'll ask Mr. Mike Krause to come up to give us an update on the Diversity in Teaching Grant Awards. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman White, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission. I'll be very brief. This is similar to the preceding presentation in that it is another way that the Commission is directly engaged with our activities on campuses. THEC has an over 20-year history in administering a grant program focused on putting more teachers from underrepresented groups in our classrooms. This began as the Minority Teacher Education Program in the late 80s. After the settlement of Geyer, it has now become the Diversity in Teaching Program. So it does continue. We received 8 proposals from all over the state. Each of these programs seek to not only get teachers from underrepresented groups, but also to ensure that those teachers would have a commitment to serving in a high-need LEA. And the result was all of these programs are focused on taking these students, giving them intensive assistance to ensure they pass their praxis exam, placing them in a high-need LEA with a high degree of low-income students, and ensuring that after graduation, after the state has provided financial assistance to them, that they're committed to remaining in that high-need LEA. Out of those 8 proposals, 4 were selected for funding. You'll see that we had 2 from the UT system, 1 from the Board of Regents, and 1 from the THEC system. I would note that a selection committee convened. Several of the members of that committee are here in the room, and we'd like to thank them for their help. It was a difficult task. The margin that separated awarded projects from those that weren't awarded was actually at about the .04 level. It was very close. These were great proposals, and the result, while it is not an incredible amount of money, these proposals in totality are expected to provide 80 teachers to the state from underrepresented groups or people who are committed to teaching in high-need areas. So I view that as a pretty substantial result, and certainly thank everyone in the room that had something to do with getting these proposals approved. Are there any questions?
How many proposals did you receive?
We received 8 proposals. And that's actually an improvement. I'm glad you asked that. The previous cycle, this program, in the wake of the settlement of Geyer, was uncertain for a couple years, and was uncertain at the legislative level. But once the appropriations were received this year, I believe last cycle only 4 proposals were received, and they were all funded. And so we've had a 100% increase. Half that we received were funded. We've already had a technical assistance workshop with each of our project directors, and we're really excited about the next academic year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Now we're ready for our next item. It's Gear Up and College Access Challenge Grant Status Report. Ms. Katie Brock.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Roeder, members of the Commission. I just wanted to update you today on 3 proposals, grant proposals, that the Office of P16 Initiatives submitted since the April Commission meeting. I hope you find them interesting. The first one is the College Access Challenge Grant. If you remember, this program is a federal formula-funded program, 1-year grant awards, renewable through 2014. So each summer, after we submit our APR in May, our grant actually expires on August 13th. So each summer we have to submit another proposal for continued funding. So we did this on July 13th of, I guess, just 2 weeks ago. We applied for the maximum allowable funding for Tennessee, $2.7 million. And with that money, we plan to continue the initiatives that we are currently running through College Access Challenge Grant. First, collegefortn.org, working on the training and implementing the resource in all K-12 schools across the state. And the College Mentor Corps, which we are subgranting to 6 organizations across the state who are partnering with 9 community colleges and 35 LEAs to develop a mentoring program, a regionally based mentoring program, focusing on transitioning high school students into college and community college students into 4-year institutions and into the workforce. The second grant program I want to talk about is through the Lumina Foundation for Education. We submitted this proposal on June 13th, and it was for the Lumina Latino Student Success Grant. This was a place-based collaborative initiative. It's $600,000 over 4 years. It's going to be highly competitive. But we submitted, I think, a very strong proposal in collaboration with these organizations that you see here at the bottom of the screen. What we plan to do with the award is expand the College Mentor Corps to the greater Memphis area, partnering with Southwest Community College and Kingsbury High School. So that'll be our first initiative on the ground in Memphis, and then also with the Latino community. And lastly, we put blood, sweat, and tears into the Gear Up grant proposal. The current Gear Up grant expires on August 31st with a federal report due on November 29th. To continue Gear Up funding, they put out a call for proposals in mid-June. We submitted in mid to early July, and the proposal we submitted was based on a framework similar to the framework of our last grant, but built-in lessons learned from the past 6 years of work. It's a little bit larger, about $4.2 million each year, with proposed to serve a larger cohort of students, and also with a more robust evaluation plan. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the Gear Up proposal. The 3 goals that you see here these are national goals that state projects adopt in their project proposals, focused on first performance and preparation of students, increase high school graduation rates and college enrollment rates, and then increasing student and family knowledge of post-secondary access and opportunities. The direct services, as I said, we're planning to work with a cohort of students a little bit larger than our last cohort. We're hoping to work with 7,500 students directly across the state. And these students will come from a cohort starting in the 7th grade class of 2017. And we will serve these students, this is new, through the first year of post-secondary. So we will actually follow them into college should they stay in the state of Tennessee. We also plan to work with the senior class of every year of the grant. The direct service schools will be selected through a competitive process, a competitive call for proposals, and in order to be eligible to apply, the schools must have a participation of 50% or greater free and reduced lunch. But they also must either be a persistently low achieving school as determined by the Tennessee Department of Education, or have a college going rate that is below the state average, the 2010 state average. In the call for proposals, which we are drafting right now, is we are going to ask the high schools to partner with a number of regional and community-based organizations. The LEA, of course, a feeder middle school, because we will start working with the cohort in 7th grade, and then a post-secondary institution, and then 2 community-based organizations. Statewide services will continue. Largely, these will stay very similar to the statewide services provided in our current Gear Up grant, just expanded, and really looking to meet the current needs of education needs of the state. So what we've written in is professional development focused on implementation of the Common Core standards, and then the PARC assessments when they come down the pike in a couple of years. And that's it. Everyone has any questions? Sure.
When will we know if our application is successful?
Good question. The Gear Up awards will be made sometime between September 16th and September 29th. They must make all awards before midnight on September 29th. It is a highly competitive pool this year. They expected for state grants, there are state grants and then partnership grants. The state grants, they expected about 35 states and territories to apply, and 39 applied. And they have enough, Gear Up was funded with enough for 15 to 20, to make 15 to 20 awards.
Good luck.
Well,
Thank you.
will some weight be considered for those who have participated? And since your report's not due until November, how will they take that into consideration?
That's a good question, and a few pieces of the application did ask us to talk about if we had a prior award, successes of that award, and so what we wrote in was preliminary successes, what we knew we had accomplished, such as the increases in advanced course enrollment, increase in FAFSA completion, things of that nature. But because the final performance reports aren't due until November and we won't have a college going rate until this fall, we were not able to include that, nor was anyone else.
When we are fortunate enough to be chosen again, will we be subject to what's going on in Washington? Could there be a chance that these dollars may not make it into budget?
We are subject to all of that. All of the federal programs that we work with, College Access Challenge Grant and Gear Up, and their sister programs like TRIO, Upper Bound, Talent Search, are all subject to the federal deficit and what comes of it. So funding, that's why the awards must be made before midnight on the 29th. So funding is there for the next year, and we have our advocates in Washington on the ground working to sustain Gear Up and all of the sister programs.
Any additional questions? No, Dr. Rhoda?
The next meeting of the commission is scheduled for November 17th. That should be a Thursday, and we'll plan to have a same format with a work session and an afternoon session. Before you do that, I just want to congratulate you, Robert, for being reelected. It's just a pleasure working with you, and the staff very much appreciates the way you tell us what to do. This has been a full day, and I appreciate all the commission members who could be here for however long they could, particularly those who have been with us the whole full day, and a special note of gratitude to the staff who just a lot of things came together for this particular meeting. So thank you all.
Thank you. All right, we're adjourned.
Took me a lot of time to clear. I put a lot of miles on my little car this year, so.